Hello, fantasy managers. My name's Tom, and I'm back talking about F1 fantasy. This is the team selection video for Monaco, right in the middle of this triple header. Very important triple header, very important sort of moment in the season. Of course, the whole season is important. We want to score points throughout. We want to gain budget throughout. But I feel like these sort of few races are quite important because we're about a third of the way through the season. We've got a very unique race coming up in Monaco. Then we've got the technical directive coming in Spain. Sprint race again, sort of a couple of races past that. So there's a lot going on at the moment, and we're all mostly stuck on a similar sort of template. You know, the Piastri, McLaren, Mercedes kind of build, and picking the right moment to sort of diverge from that, you know, is very important because otherwise you're just going to be sat kind of stagnant with your rank. You know, last week was tricky. Williams versus Mercedes versus Red Bull. A lot of us, myself included, stuck with Mercedes. We have a look at my team in a second from Imola. Didn't work out, obviously, thanks to the DNF. So yeah, moments like that could be quite pivotal in both in terms of points and future budget gain. As you see, Mercedes are going to be potentially struggling to get that budget gain this week. We'll see. But yeah, I do think it's an important part of the season. So yeah, we'll get stuck into our Monaco sort of preview team selection. Bear with me, I have got horrible hay fever at the moment. You can probably hear it in my voice, so just bear with me as my stuffy head processes the thoughts that need processing to get the best team for Monaco. So let's have a quick look at my team from Imola, and then we'll have a think about Monaco more precisely. So this is my team coming out of Imola. Very underwhelming, not going to lie. Like I said just now, like the decision going into Imola was kind of Mercedes versus Red Bull versus Williams. Out of those three choices, the Mercedes turned out to be the worst choice, mainly because of that DNF from Antonelli. Obviously had a massive impact. You know, you don't get the points gained just for participating in the race and hopefully finishing the top 10, as Antonelli probably would have done. So yeah, taking a -20, only getting 6 points is really rough for us Mercedes owners. But that's kind of the balancing act I was talking about. You know, Mercedes heavily owned going into Imola. Do you stick with the crowd? If things go wrong, then it's not too bad because, you know, the crowd have all been hit. Or do you diverge, go with someone like Red Bull, take a bit of a punt on that, and hope Mercedes have a bad weekend? That's exactly what happened. So anyone that went Red Bull had a great weekend. I personally didn't go Red Bull mainly because I really wanted Alex Albon in my team. Well, a couple of reasons. Yeah, I wanted Alex Albon on my team, and also going Red Bull for me meant I would have had to use 3 transfers rather than just 2, which I did use last week. So yeah, Red Bull would tempt him, but I didn't go there. Like I said, I wanted Alex Albon in my team, and I couldn't afford Albon with the Red Bull constructor, and I still can't get there actually, which is kind of annoying for team selection going into Monaco, because I think Red Bull are again potentially a good option going into Monaco. But yeah, so anyway, decisions are made. I ended up on a team, I think quite a few people sort of ended up on a very similar team, you know, sticking with the Mercedes constructor. Obviously, it did not pay off, but we keep on pushing on and hoping for the best. So the rest of the team did fine, I guess. Colin Bento, very unexciting return to F1, but, you know, he's basically there because he can't drop any price, and there was no other good options for gaining budget last week. That's not so much the case this week, although I think Colapinto will probably still be sticking around whilst I scramble around trying to build budget elsewhere. But yeah, apart from that, Hajar did okay, but still dropped a little bit in value. Piastri on the 2 times, a little bit unfortunate of a race for him. It could have been a lot better, but still got a few overtakes in the middle of that race, and it kind of turned out okay. Being 31 points on the 2 times is not terrible. I think it was level with Norris from what I remember, more or less. So yeah, not too bad. And Bortoleto just doing Bortoleto things, just not really doing anything. But again, you can't drop in value. So yeah, let's move on and have a think about Monaco. So Monaco, as I've sort of touched on, is this pretty unique track, as we're all kind of aware in the calendar, and it's very important to get qualifying right. If you don't qualify in a good position, the race is pretty much done. That might not necessarily be the case to the extreme example that has been for the previous seasons, but because this year we have got the 2 mandatory pit stops, so there could be some amount of shaking up in the order as a result of having an extra pit stop thrown into the mix. It might not be quite the procession that we're kind of used to, but I still think that qualifying is going to be very important. That's where I'm going to be putting most of my focus in when I look at the practice sessions this Friday and Saturday. could be the most important practice sessions of the season, actually, kind of. Like I say, because qualifying's probably more important here than anywhere else in the calendar. Therefore, we want to see who is looking good for qualifying and also who's looking confident in the car, because this is a tough track to go around for 78 laps. That's insane, isn't it? 78 laps around this tight track. And yeah, I think it's going to be important to get who is going to really nail who the good qualifiers are. Looking at the practice sessions, so we will be paying close attention to that. There is also the threat of some amount of rain on Saturday, the most important day, of course. As I've just said about qualifying, there is some threat of some showers through qualifying that could cause some headaches. So is something like final fix on the table? Yes, and that is something that's I'm putting my thought into this weekend. I have got a build which kind of opens up some final fix options for me should the need arise. If, for example, Piastri, the favourable 2 times at the moment, if he bins it in Q1, Q2 or something, you probably don't want him in your team, so you want to final fix him out. Having a bit of spare budget to put in someone else is a good idea. Not, it doesn't have to go that way. It's not that likely that someone like Piastri is going to bin it or something, but having that option on a tricky track is certainly a nice thing to have and something to bear in mind picking our teams this week. Final fix, if you don't use it this week, is still fine to just hold until, we almost had a final fix opportunity in Imola just last week with Alex Albon. Will he, won't he actually start the race in the final sort of hour before the lights went out? So yeah, a situation like that, could happen as the season goes on. Mechanical issues kind of become more apparent as pieces in the car kind of wear out. So yeah, final fix definitely on the table this weekend, but it's not the end of the world if we don't get around to using it. But having that option is nice. As for the actual track itself, it is terrible for overtakes, which is why some people have deliberated about using Limitless because of that delta. Obviously, the people that are at the back of the grid are not going to score many points. Everyone that starts pretty much P8 backwards are just going to score like single digit points, if that sort of thing. You might even see some negative scores as people maybe move back a bit, shuffle around in the pit stop slightly maybe, or just crash out. So yeah, for me personally, probably not going Limitless because the budget situation isn't optimal, and I don't want to go Limitless and then my Limitless team have a mistake in qualifying, in a wet qualifying around Monaco. They qualify like P11, P15 or something stupid, and my Limitless team is just completely ruined. So I'm probably not going Limitless. Final fix is more on the mind. So this is the team coming out of Imola. Like I say, it wasn't a spectacular weekend coming out of Imola, but I think a lot of people will be in a similar situation to me. My budget is definitely worse for wear, and that's also something that's on my mind, which is making me think, do I want to go kind of more down this kind of touching on this kind of budget building option? And the budget building option for me, particularly as Mercedes are not guaranteed to get that 0.3 rise this week because of the DNF last week. Williams are very much on my mind again. I did strongly deliberate them going into Imola. They ended up having a very good weekend. They look like dead search for a 0.6 rise for the next couple of weekends, most likely. Going back to this kind of half orange, half blue team is something that's definitely crossed my mind, because the Williams almost guarantee 0.6. And for a team like mine, I'm on 110.1 million. It definitely feels like I am below average, I would say. Amongst engaged managers, I would say I don't know, it's hard to know because there's no actual data anywhere, but looking around at other people's teams, people post stuff on Twitter or other YouTubers, whatever, I feel like my budget just a little bit, it's taken a lot out of me, Australia, and it's taken me a long way to claw back. And I jumped on the template of the Mercedes as soon as it was sort of viable sort of thing. So I didn't really have that B tier constructed to boost me up at the time. Now with Mercedes being a little bit iffy in the decline, if we have a quick look at F1 Fantasy Tools, you can see they're still consistent. They're still doing well, but there is a slight drop off by sort of 10-15 points. And obviously the DNF hammered them in Imola. And you compare that to Williams down here, a slight increase in points. And that's, with this 31 points in Miami, for example, that's including a minus 20 in there. So actually, Williams looked set for a really good score in Miami, and so I think that 31 is a bit misleading, perhaps. And I think the Williams are actually scoring quite strongly, and they look like a good kind of all-round car. It's not like they are just like a straight line rocket like they have been in previous seasons. They seem pretty good around most corners. Even in the slow corners, they seem to have improved a lot, and we've got a lot of slow corners in Monaco. So I'm not actually too unhappy. I was a bit concerned about Williams going into this chunk of races, but they give me a lot of confidence through Imola. And I know Imola isn't quite the same track as Monaco is, but more medium and higher speed sort of corners, and Monaco is a little more slow. But like I just said, Williams don't look awful in the slow corners, and Albon just keep chugging away. Carlos Sainz looks more confident with the car. And just chopping down to Williams, like I say, for a budget like mine, 110.1, it's not a great budget, and I know it's not a big gain, just getting 0.3 over a bigger constructor. But over a course of a couple of weeks, if I hold them for Spain, for example, they get another 0.6. Suddenly, it's not just 0.3 we're looking at, it's 0.6. And suddenly my budget is kind of catching up a little bit more to some of the other teams around me. And it also enables me to sort of focus more on my B-tier drivers. So someone like Hadjar. So if we have a quick look at the budget builder, we can see Hadjar is not likely to get a price gain. He needs 9 points. I just can't see that happening. I just can't see it happening in Monaco. I just really can't see it happen. He'd have to finish in the top sort of 5 or 6 probably to score that. So I think Hadjar's going to drop again in price. He might even get a 0.6 drop, which is unfortunate. I mean, it's not the end of the world, Hadjar, because I did invest in him at 4.5. But it's also, so I'm not really losing anything as such, but it's also nice to kind of bank that money that I've gained with Hadjar. Was it 4.5? I feel like it's 4.5. I actually forget. Yeah, he was at 4.5 a few weeks ago, wasn't he? So pretty sure. Might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he was. So it doesn't feel like if I just hold on to Hadjar and he drops in price, I haven't actually lost anything, but I've effectively lost it by not banking it. So dropping off Hadjar and going with Williams is certainly something that's on my mind. And if we sort it by value, I'm looking at a couple of options. So the first option is Tsunoda. It doesn't super excite me because Tsunoda hasn't looked that confident in Red Bull. And it does also use up nearly all my budget. So, final fix becomes a little bit more awkward with someone like Piastri. But yeah, Tsunoda, it's like having another premium driver in your team, but he's not really premium because he hasn't really set the world alight as yet. Big crash in Imola, setting him off for a -5 to start the weekend, not an ideal thing. So are we confident with Tsunoda going around Monaco in this Red Bull? Not overly, but he's still in the Red Bull. Verstappen's shown that Red Bull is capable of winning races. So having Tsunoda in there could be a good option, but I'm just not that sure about it. I'm looking more towards someone like a Pierre Gasly or maybe a Hülkenberg. Pierre Gasly's got a good record around Monaco. And he looks, if we look at the budget builder, he looks like a good shout for a price gain. He just needs a flat 0, and he goes up 0.2 here. And you can see the best option, Tsunoda has that good opportunity to go up in price as well. It's no kind of reason to go for him. But you also got to bear in mind that Tsunoda's likely to go up because he's got this 33 points from round 6. So when that drops off, he sat here of a round 7 score of 9, and then probably a single, maybe low double-digit score in Monaco. At a price of 14 odd million, I think he's going to struggle to get a price gain in Spain. So going to Tsunoda is a bit of a 1 week thing in my mind. So I do think that someone like Gasly could be longer term. Not that he did particularly well, only 3 points in round 7, and he's kind of living off this 18 pointer here. But he's a lot cheaper, so it's a lot easier for him to avoid the price drops. Past that, it's tough because Sainz, until next week, until Spain, for his home race, Sainz is definitely on the radar there. Everyone else down here is kind of completely off the radar for me. Stroll just doesn't particularly excite me. Just doesn't instill me in confidence going around Monaco. Again, he's living off this 25 pointer, so he's a bit more of a 1 week point. 1 week punt. So the other option really past Gasly for me looks like Hülkenberg because he's super cheap. He's got a 9 pointer that he's going to live off from Imola, which is really nice. And again, it's quite easy for him to score points. So Hülkenberg and Gasly are kind of the main contenders for this other slot if I go with this Williams build. Hülkenberg as a good qualifier, and the Sauber isn't terrible at qualifying. It's not very good at much else, but it's not the worst qualifier. Maybe Hülkenberg can scrape a couple of points and just get a little bit of a rise. So yeah, it's tight for me between Hülkenberg and Gasly. Like I say, Gasly's had some quite a good record round here in recent years. So maybe Gasly's the one. Yeah, maybe. But going double Alpine isn't filling me with a great amount of confidence. But the boon, basically, what I would decide to do will depend a lot on the practice sessions. Who looks more confident? Who looks better at qualifying, Gasly versus Hülkenberg, and kind of go with that. Hülkenberg certainly looks nice because he's super cheap, so he's a bit more of an enabler, a little bit cheaper than Gasly, and like I say, just a little bit more likely to have that price gain potential going into Spain as well, so you're not just constantly shuffling around your B tier drivers when you're kind of want to focus on a potential constructor change going into Spain. If McLaren drop off the face of a cliff, suddenly we want to drop them off, and it's all changed. And I don't have my wild card, so I've got to bear that in mind. Try and keep 3 transfers going into Spain. It would be really nice. So this is kind of where I'm thinking, if this is a big if Williams look strong in practice, because if Williams aren't really there, Sainz and Albon aren't and looking that confident, having a little few issues in practice sessions, I don't want to go there, because it's tough to score points. If we have a quick look at the statistics again for Monaco, let's have a look at last year. It's not easy to score points unless you're in that top group of drivers. So if we go to Monaco last year, we can see, past Verstappen here, so P1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So pretty much after P6, you're only really scoring, well, Verstappen scraped a 13-pointer. So after P sort of 7, 8, it's really bad for scoring points. So, if Williams aren't looking like they're strong contenders to compete in that P5, P6, P7 region like they looked like in Imola, if Williams aren't there, then they might not be worth it. But if Albon and Sainz, in the form that they seem to be in at the moment, hopefully they can't mess up the strategy. The strategy of Williams is a slight concern. They don't seem to be quite on it as the bigger teams like Red Bull or Mercedes, for example, is a bit of a detraction for their appeal to me. But yeah, I'd say if Williams look really on it, let's just go one more year further back as well, just to try and get an idea of the Monaco scoring, around 7. So again, look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So after P6, where Russell is here, you're looking at 10 points and less. It's not great. So Williams really need to be showing to be competitive in the practice sessions to go this way. I'm really hoping that they do look really competitive, as they have done recently, because I would love to go this way. I'd love to get a bit more price game potential in the likes of Gasly, the likes of Williams. It would be really nice to go that way. And with 7.2 in the million, this opens up the final fix possibility. So if Piastri does have a poor qualifying, it means I can get anyone I want with my budget. I've got 31.5 in the bank for final fixing out Piastri for basically whoever qualifies on pole. I'll just put whoever, even if it's like Leclerc, even though Ferraris haven't, I think Leclerc has got potential for pole, even though the Ferraris haven't looked great in qualifying. I just trust Leclerc around here. I know he's been cursed in the past, but I think he's maybe shaken that curse off with his victory here last year. So yeah, I do think pretty much whoever's on pole, whether it's Verstappen, Norris, Leclerc, or someone else, who knows, this Williams team opens up that final fix opportunity to bin off someone like Piastri and put in whoever, like a Norris or whatever. Going into the actual team, I could afford this straight off the bat. Why don't you just go Lando Norris and then move down from Norris to Piastri? The reason for that is because I don't want to use that transfer. I want to save that transfer for Spain. And also, I just think Piastri is a great option. He's still just super cheap. Why do I want to spend extra money on Norris? If I go Norris, use that transfer and bring in Norris now, it makes it more difficult for me to bring back a big constructor going into Spain if it's necessary. So yeah, Norris is not going there. Piastri's just not going anywhere unless something crazy happens in the practice sessions or whatever. So this is certainly a team I'm strongly considering, but it's heavily dependent on the practice sessions, heavily dependent particularly, obviously, on Williams' ability to do well. Now, I've got to think about what's the contingency here. If Williams don't look great, what am I going to do? Well, I can kind of stick more or less what I'm doing. I can get rid of Hadjar. I don't want to get rid of Hadjar. I think he's actually a good option. I think he's capable of scoring some point. He's capable of getting into Q3, I think, in Monaco. He's really impressed me. It's just this budget kind of drainage that's not really going his way at the moment. So I would potentially look to drop off Hadjar and maybe just using one move and bringing in Hulkenberg. Like I say, it's not exciting having 2 Saubers in my team, but he's got very good price game potential. So I might, just hold my hands up and kind of do that. And then stick with the Mercedes. Obviously, Mercedes, Antonelli's been inconsistent in qualifying. He's had really good qualifying, really bad qualifying, or somewhere in the middle. It's hard to kind of gauge where he's going to be. So looking at his confidence levels through the practice session is also going to be really important. George Russell has been really good at qualifying for a long time now. So that's a big bonus for me. And if I stick with Mercedes, I think Russell's got a good opportunity to get it in that sort of top 4 region, which is great if you've got Mercedes as your second constructor. So I think, I'm not just like, Mercedes had a terrible weekend in Imola, jump off immediately. I think there's a strong argument to say hold Mercedes as well, and I'm likely doing that if Williams don't look super strong. The alternative, again, to someone like Mercedes would be Red Bull. For me personally, though, it's a bit of a struggle because I can't get there. 25.1 and they're 26.9, so it means I would basically have to. I mean, let's see, if I go back to my original team, actually, I'm pretty sure I can't afford this when I was looking earlier. So if I had Hajar back in there, yeah, I'm still 0.9 short, so I can't do a straight swap here. So I basically have to, because there's no one cheaper than Hajar. I'd have to get rid of Albon, and I don't want to. That's kind of one of the reasons why I didn't go Red Bull in Imola, because I wanted Albon, and now because my budget is also still kind of struggling, it means I'd have to drop Albon. It's not the end of the world. I'm not saying Albon's going to set the world alight again in Monaco, and I could, have my choice of anyone from Stroll down. Stroll, not particularly exciting. Sainz, I think he's heavily on the radar going into Spain, but not this week. Hazards are just completely off the radar, and then again it kind of comes down to Gasly or Hulkenberg. It's a bit Hulkenberg maybe gets the edge. I don't know, but then Gasly good around Monaco again. Practice session decision. That's not for me to go into in great detail now. Let's just say it's Gasly for now. If I really want to go Red Bull, say Tsunoda looks great in practice. Verstappen is just Verstappen. He's very capable of sticking it on pole and just winning. This is probably what I'd end up doing. But, having no Williams coverage, no Albon coverage when they seem to be on good form seems a bit rough. But like I say, if Williams just are completely off it, they don't look like they're going to do well at all around Monaco, then just binning off Albon entirely and jumping onto Red Bull if Red Bull looks stronger than Mercedes is also a great option. So I said at the beginning of the video, this weekend is going to be heavily dependent on practice. Like every weekend is very dependent on practice, but I think more so than normal this weekend as well is going to be important. And I will, I guess, give a quick shout out to Ferrari, because they are still really good at the pit stops. They're getting closer and closer to getting a sub 2 second pit stop. It's going to happen at some point, and they're going to get a big chunk of points from that. Ferraris have struggled in qualifying, so will they do well this weekend? They were terrible in Imola for qualifying. It all went wrong. Didn't get to Q3. They didn't get those nice 10 points for getting everyone into Q3, but their race pace is pretty solid, and they managed to make some overtakes, make those gains in the race, get those positions gained, and score very handsomely. So they kind of recovered and saved their blushes in Imola. They're not going to be able to do that in Monaco unless something weird happens with the pit stops or whatever. It's going to be a bit of a possession, apart from safety car opportunities and that. So yeah, are Ferrari going to sort out their qualifying pace again? Very dependent on practice sessions. Can they sort it out? Do they look good on the softs? That's going to be a decision for me. They're not really on my radar at the moment, but it's obviously still an option. We could go down this route if we wanted. But right now, my likely thinking is it's still between Mercedes and Williams, just to keep things simple. If Mercedes and Williams both kind of look off it, then we go with this Red Bull kind of build and just kind of be like, yep, we're going with it. Quite a few people have already moved on to Red Bull anyway, so, let's maybe hop off the sinking ship that maybe is Mercedes and hop onto Red Bull whilst the going's good. Whilst Verstappen's still Verstappening everybody. Great overtake on turn 1, by the way, wasn't it? Absolutely phenomenal. Loved it, even though it wasn't in my fantasy team. It's just like flipping neck when I watched it. I was like, wow, that was good. That was really good. So yeah, but my hope this weekend is that Williams look on it. Come on, Williams, please, because it'd be really nice to get a bit of budget. Move my team around, like I say, potentially a Tsunoda in here, potentially if Tsunoda looks great. Otherwise, it's probably a Gasly or a Hulkenberg. That's kind of where my thinking is at the moment. I'll be back for some final thoughts on Friday, and if I get permission from the missus, I might be doing a live stream on Saturday as well. We'll see what she says. So yeah, catch me in a couple of days' time. Sorry it's a bit late this weekend, but been out celebrating quite a lot this week because Palace won the FA Cup. It has been a phenomenal week for me as a Palace fan. Just absolutely insane. My voice was hoarse at the weekend after a lot of singing and chanting and celebrating, and now my voice is hoarse again because it's flipping hay fever. I just can't win. But yeah. Great week for me. Let's hope it goes smoothly in Monaco as well. Let me know what you guys think. Like I say, it's a bit tricky for me to be like, I'm doing this. I know a lot of people on these videos are like, tell me what you're doing. It's like this week is even more dependent on practice sessions. I'll probably be saying the same thing in Spain as well. Very dependent on practice sessions because of technical directive stuff in Spain, but that's a different story. This is very important because we want to see who is going to be the best in qualifying. So yeah, please do give the video a like if you've got this far in it, and I'll catch you in a couple of days for some final thoughts. So thanks very much for listening to me chit chat about F1 fantasy. It's good to get back into the swing of things, and I'll see you in a couple of days, I hope. So thanks and goodbye.